And so Vince, I know you are watching because you are now a subscriber of mine and you've commented on the last 2 videos I made about you. And I'm glad I have your attention. I just hope that your attention is slightly better than it was in high school biology class. And so I made a video about Vince's ridiculous claim of dry muscle and 41 pounds of muscle mass increase in 6 months. And Vince replied by leaving a nice comment for me. I actually thought that my reply was fairly adequate. And so Vince blocks social media figures who debated the fact that you can build 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months. And Vince clearly states 41 pounds of muscle, such as Every Damn Day Fitness, blocked. Steve Shaw, blocked. However, for some reason, Vince has chosen yours truly as the person to interact with on this issue of dry muscle. Vince, that is a very, very good idea. No nonsense Q&A with Vince Del Monte, which is ironic because it's full of nonsense. Question for Vince. You've written that cardio should be done on an empty stomach or after weight training. If you do cardio after weight training, when should you take your post-workout supplement? Between weight training and cardio or after cardio? And Vince's reply. By post-workout supplement, I'm assuming you mean a shake with 8 branch chain amino acids. Do you mean 3 branch chain amino acids? Anyway, or whey isolate protein along with some simple carbs like dextrose or honey. Since the body will burn carbs for fuel if it has access to them, the actual energy sources that your body use are highly related to the intensity of training. Low intensity training will use more fat for fuel. We don't know exactly how much. And higher intensities will use more of the glycogen. So that's a nuance of energy systems. You definitely want to hold off on that shake until you are done with both your weights and cardio. Since that is awful long time to go without eating or drinking anything, here we go. You should have some BCAA powder or a little bit of whey protein after weights, but before you start cardio. This will prevent your body from scavenging your own muscle tissue to get amino acids for fuel, since without glycogen in your system, there is the risk of that taking place. It's not a bad idea to have BCAAs or some whey protein even before an early morning cardio session to prevent that catabolic event from happening. No, Vince, I've made a video about BCAAs. I suggest you watch that and educate yourself. Indeed, the processes of catabolism are very normal. By taking a BCAA, you're not going to prevent catabolism. You're not going to stay anabolic. You're not going to maintain some sort of peak anabolism. It's a regulated process in the body. You also have this little gem where you talk about the post-workout window of opportunity. Nonsense, is all bro science. And Vince, that's the difference between me and you. And since this man just won't accept how ridiculous his claims are and how much of a bigger hole he's digging for himself, I would actually at this point prefer to listen to the other Vince Sant from V-Shred talk about somatotypes, or listen to Hemingway talk about rate coding, than listen to Vince Del Monte talk about dry muscle. And actually, due to the fact that Vince Sant has been injured and not been able to release content, now Vince is actually greater than Vince. And so what he did is to post a link into different forms of hypertrophy by Greg Knuckles under my video. And I want to apologize to Mr. Knuckles that this is the man who is posting links to your work. In the same way that I would like to apologize to Dr. Mike Israel that it's our boy Hemingway who is the one that's using your information. And so I posted his comment in my reply on my social media, and a member of my community left this comment which I thought was quite apt. I can't believe the irony in this. DeMonte telling you to read some Greg Knuckles. My night is complete. And that sums up how I felt about this too. And so Vince, stop projecting and perfecting a reputation that isn't grounded in results, experience and time. Why? You can't fix what you fake. And you'll never build the reputation you truly desire without the hard repetitions. It's a nice speech I just gave, isn't it? But what's funny about that is it's actually one of Vince's recent Instagram posts, one of his motivational entrepreneurial posts. How ironic is that? that his post applies perfectly to the way he behaves in relation to fitness. And then another recent post from Vince, which is actually quite sad because he was scammed out of $50,000. And he says, "I fell for a big promise. Anytime someone promises you big results in a short period of time, run." Vince, do you not see the hypocrisy in the content you put out? You state that people can gain 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months. That is a big promise. And what my last video was doing is exactly what you ask people to do. To warn people to run. And so whilst I'm here, Vince, I don't care how much money you have. And I don't care how much money you say you can make people. Money, of course, has its place, but it's not everything. And sincerity and dignity is extremely valuable. And going to bed at night knowing that you've given people honest, applicable, and transparent information, knowing that your information will genuinely help people to transform their lives and become healthier individuals, not to give people false hopes such as 41 pounds of muscle mass increase in 6 months. Where did that come from? And so calling out nonsense in fitness YouTube and social media fitness is very important. So let's get to Vince's response to me. And at this point, I genuinely am starting to believe that Vince Del Monte does not understand the difference between lean mass and muscle mass, because he just cannot understand what muscle is. And so in Greg Nuckols' article, he gives a disclaimer at the beginning that this is a long article. This could be a 40-minute read for you. And in no way did Vince read it. Absolutely not. And so I just want to kind of summarize. But in no way does Greg Nuckols in this article mention anything called dry muscle. In no way does he say you can build 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months. In actual fact, what Greg says, in essence, is exactly the same as I said in my dry muscle video and also my muscle hypertrophy video. And these two categories are contractile hypertrophy and non-contractile hypertrophy. Myself and Greg both talk about two different forms of muscle hypertrophy, what I called functional and non-functional, myofibrillar and non-functional hypertrophy. Greg refers to in the same way, but he calls non-functional sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Now, in essence, when you train, you are working on functional muscle hypertrophy. You are increasing the size of muscle fibers, the sarcomeres in parallel. Because hypertrophy caused by resistance training happens when there is an increase in the size of the myofibrils and sarcomeres in parallel. And you can think of this as kind of stacking them next to each other. You know when you feel like a canned fish on public transport in the underground? That's kind of what you can think of as this parallel increase in myofibrils and sarcomeres. However, in no way when you are in the gym are you training for glycogen gains or wet muscle gains or whatever. Muscle mass is muscle mass. Hypertrophy is hypertrophy. The applicable form of muscle hypertrophy theory is that you go to the gym, you lift weights, you use progressive overload, and you create adaptations and increase muscle mass, of course, with the adequate eating protocol also. In no way is there a dry muscle and a wet muscle. And Vince just cannot understand that. Hypertrophy is hypertrophy in application. And the only difference between what Greg Nuckols says and what I'd said in my videos is Greg writes a very lengthy article where he documents the history, the debates, the pros, the cons, the nuances. It's a really good article. He shows how multifaceted this concept is. Now, if I were to do the same, my video would be very, very long, and that would bore the hell out of people. And I don't want that, Vince, because I want them to keep their attention so they can understand how ridiculous your claims were. The reason, in my opinion, that you continue to try and twist and create this story, and you will not simply acknowledge how ridiculous what you said is because a lot of your content is based on these types of claims, these outlandish changes in body composition in very relatively short amounts of time. And while some of your followers might be taken in by the six-pack images and the chesticles, members of this community are not swayed by exclamation marks and these clickbaity type newsletters. And whilst we're at it, Vince, I would like to talk about your 330,000 YouTube subscribers, as you talk about in the Vince Del Monte Mastermind program. And the Vince Del Monte Mastermind program is actually an oxymoron. You have 300,000+ subscribers and you have very, very poor engagement from your subscriber base. Now, what does that tell you, Vince? And so how is it possible that people can get so many subscribers but not actually to get a proportionate amount of views? So Vince, don't worry about your base level BCAA understanding. I have you covered. I have a video on that. And don't worry about your really poor understanding of nutrient timing. I also have a video on that. So Vince, my genuine advice to you is to watch some of my videos and educate yourself. However, if you would like to continue down this course of destruction, I would be very happy to have a more interactive debate with you. As Jigsaw says, the choice is yours. I'm James Linker, Shredded Sports Science. I'll see you soon.